Hello and welcome yourself back to Sidemen React. Today we are going to be checking out some dumb prison escapes. I don't know what to expect.
Attempts, in fact.
Yeah, escape attempts. I mean, maybe some of them worked. Who knows? Well, you never know.
Dumb attempts, I feel like, implies.
The fact their attempts is a failure, yeah, and the fact they're dumb probably is also a failure.
Or they're so dumb that they work.
That the attempt actually works. I reckon there'll be one. Let's see.
1953, and British criminal Alfred George Hines was serving 12 years in prison, but the Nottingham prison where he was held wouldn't be able to contain him, as he eventually got through locked doors and climbed a 20-foot wall to freedom. He spent almost a year across Europe before being recaptured, and then quickly escaped while awaiting trial and headed straight for the airport. He was caught again, but escaped from Chelmsford prison and fled to Ireland, where his freedom lasted 2 years.
What the hell?
He became notorious in the British media, dubbed Houdini Hines, and was inducted into Mensa after his eventual release from prison. Many people consider him the greatest prison escape artist of all time. This video is not about
okay. I was getting so confused.
Prison escapes each year in the United States, but that number is dwarfed by the number of escape attempts. Most of these are foiled very quickly.
Yeah, that is a little worrying.
You ever see that guy who like insta-lived or something? He did a whole like Snapchat, or was it Snapchat? He basically just...
In our troll station, though.
It was it?
I think so.
I don't know what I just remember seeing that. It went viral though, didn't it?
It's legit or not.
I assume it's not. Because he's literally...
Yeah, his troll station is probably not.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally walking out of prison. I assume it's not legit, but...
We could have filmed a Sidemen short of that when we filmed Hide and Seek in a prison.
Oh,
yeah. Just us leaving the building.
If we had made fake drama of like Bazinga getting arrested, and then he just goes, we're like, free up Ethan, and he comes out and goes, yeah, my guy's freed me, and walk out of the cell.
What was he arrested for, Josh?
Just tax evasion. Fraud.
Nice.
Saying simple.
Prisoning to scale the prison walls, running into the nearby woods, or attempting to get smuggled out of the prison. Guards know how to look out for these tactics by now, and uncreative inmates usually find themselves right back where they started, maybe with a longer sentence or less comfortable quarters. Other inmates are taking a more aggressive approach and starting riots or taking guards hostage. Those usually end in a standoff and hostage negotiation that's highly unlikely to end with release. But some inmates take more creative approaches to escape. We said creative, not effective. Kenneth Burnham was doing a few years in prison for burglary when he started to get stir-crazy. He watched other inmates in his Hamilton County, Tennessee prison get prepped for release and thought, why not me? Then he took that a bit too literally. As another inmate was about to be released on bond awaiting trial, Burnham took advantage of the light security and decided he'd simply take that man's identity. He presented himself when the officers came to collect the lucky inmate and signed all the paperwork. He was just minutes away from freedom. There was just one problem. The inmate set for release, Glenn Taylor, was black and Burnham was definitely not black. Prison officials looked on the sheet and saw the issue, and Burnham's not-so-great escape was stopped in its tracks. Burnham briefly claimed to have not been aware Taylor was black, but admitted he just wanted to escape. He wound up being charged with criminal impersonation and attempted escape, ensuring he'd have a bit longer to cook up half-baked escape attempts. At least he stayed clean, unlike our next inept inmate. Everyone remembers the famous prison escape
when
from
he released. Like, you go around and say, oh, when are you being released? And then try and find someone that looked slightly like
half
you.
like you.
Yeah.
You know? Find the wish version of you and then go.
Everyone remembers the famous prison escape from the Shawshank Redemption, as innocent lifer Andy Dufresne tirelessly tunneled his way out of his cell and escaped through the prison's sewer system. But fact isn't as glamorous as fiction, as one Brazilian inmate found out. He tunneled out of his cell into the sewer system too, but he wasn't all that well prepared. He decided to make his escape wearing only a pair of shorts. Not ideal wear for digging around through human waste to make your escape. At least the sewer's a clear shot to freedom, right? Wrong. From the moment the unfortunate prisoner decided to make his escape, it was nothing but one humiliation after another. He got stuck in the sewer only a few feet from his cell, lost his shorts in the sewer, and had to be pulled to safety covered in filth and completely naked by two other men. The man's ill-advised escape attempt was caught on video that went viral around the world, but his name was never released to the public and no one knows what became of him. He's probably happy about that. It's hard to keep cool in prison, but one inmate took impatience to another level. Andrew Wilson seemed to be a model prisoner, doing time for burglary, theft, and possession of controlled substances. He had to keep his nose clean in prison and was approaching his parole board hearing. All he had to do was stay calm and do his work detail. Wilson wasn't considered a high-risk inmate, so he was given a little more freedom, which one day he decided to take full advantage of. He stole a truck at the work camp he was serving at, drove off, and ditched the truck to run to freedom in the next town. He tried to stay ahead of the authorities, but it wasn't long before he was caught with drugs on his person. He was facing new charges of possession and escape from custody and would be extending his stay in Tennessee's Corrections Department. But he did get one piece of good news when he was back in custody. The parole department had approved his release only 24 hours after he escaped. Patience is a virtue, but not for Andrew Wilson. Making an escape from prison.
I was
is
literally
hard
about to
enough.
say,
Staying
why
free
was that dumb? I was like,
Yeah.
it seemed like he had quite a good attempt there.
It's
Could be
even
worse.
harder. One inmate found
Could
that
crawl
out
through
the hard
poo.
way. The Olympic Correction Center in Washington was a relatively easy prison to escape from, and James Russell was no rookie. He was serving his 4th prison term and had just been transferred to the minimum security work camp. It didn't take long for the serial thief to take full advantage as he made a break for it and escaped into the nearby woods. But he was in a rural area, still wearing his prison gear, and needed some help to make his escape complete. He came across a cabin at a nearby river resort and decided to sneak in. Sounds like a smart plan. Not like anyone would recognize him. There was just one problem. The current resident of the cabin was a guard at that exact
fuck's sake.
prison that
Oh
Russell
my
had escaped
God.
from. Seeing an escaped inmate, the guard immediately tackled Russell. Russell escaped, but the guard notified all the other guards in the area to be on the lookout. Russell was quickly tracked down by the other guards, facing
Well, the
new
chances
charges
of
for
that.
escape. The serial
That must be
offender's brief stay in
terrifying.
minimum
It's
security
better off
was
going
over.
nude than
Most
same as
prison
nudist in
escapees are hard
the
in
woods.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Just got to be confident.
At least the jumpsuit.
Yeah, just say I'm a nudist, bro. Walk around.
Criminals, right? Not quite. Christopher Buscachi had only arrived at Elmwood Correctional Facility a few days earlier, but he was quickly getting tired of prison life. It was time to get out of there, and he made a break for it. Buscachi was actually much better at escape than most inmates, and the guards were taken by surprise at
super
just
jump.
how fast he
Yeah.
made it over the fences. But he wasn't
double jump.
prepared for just how many fences there were. And after leaving his shoe atop the barbed wire, he was eventually snagged before scaling the last fence. What terrible fate was Buscachi fleeing? The hardened criminal doing hard time was actually facing misdemeanor petty theft charges, and he was staying in a minimum security facility while awaiting arraignment. By making a break for it, he traded his relatively comfortable digs for a stay in maximum security and felony charges that would likely see him staying in the prison system for several years instead of a short stay in
You
county
idiot,
jail or
bro.
Done
probation.
yourself in there.
Most prisoners who fail at their escapes just head right back to where they left, but some aren't so lucky. Prison escapes have been going on far longer than the modern prison system, and old-time prisons could be very tricky to escape. What they lacked in modern security they made up for in treacherous designs that threatened any escapee with certain death. That didn't stop Griffith ap Llywelyn, a Welsh king, in 1244. He had been held in prison for much of his life due to conflicts over his father's land, and he was eventually held in the notorious Tower of London by his brother Dafydd in a particularly nasty family feud. He had enough, and he hatched a dangerous plot. He designed himself an improvised rope made from his bed sheets and threw them out the window, planning to scale the Tower of London and rappel down.
Rapunzel type
There
beat.
was only one problem. All those years in captivity weren't great for exercise, and Griffith's weight was too much for the thin cloth to handle. He did make it down from the Tower of London, but at a much faster speed than he was hoping. Griffith wasn't the only famous prisoner to try and fail to escape, and the next one shows that higher education is no guarantee of strategic smarts. Dr.
Hear that,
Samuel
Josh?
Mudd might have simply been
Yeah.
in the wrong place at the
Uni
wrong time,
degree means
treating
nothing
the
in-
injured John
in the
Wilkes
mean
Booth
It's
after
fine.
the
It's a prison.
assassination of Abraham Lincoln. But his
common sense
participation
is
in
fine.
lying to authorities got him a life sentence in prison. He was imprisoned on the isolated Fort Jefferson, and prisoners had a bit more freedom there since they couldn't get off the grounds easily. Mudd befriended Henry Kelly, a teenager working on the transport steamer, and convinced the boy to smuggle him off the island. Mudd changed into professional-looking clothes, snuck into Kelly's ship, and tried to blend in. There was
Good
just
plan so
one
far.
problem. He was probably the most famous convict in the country at the moment. He was soon identified by the fort's storekeeper, arrested, and sentenced to hard labor. Kelly also found himself in trouble for participating in the escape plot. But Mudd's story had a happier ending than most failed prison escapees. He was pardoned by President Andrew Johnson and headed home after only a few years. Getting help is a good way to get out of prison,
Why do you
but the
pardon?
partner in crime doesn't
I don't
always
think there was a
work
dumb
out.
attempt there,
Michael
really.
Coleman and Lester Burns were
Was there?
tired of
Pretty
their stay
smart.
in prison, and when the opportunity
you're in a different
presented
country,
itself,
maybe.
they made their escape. They were on a long trip in a prison van along with other inmates when they had to make an emergency stop due to a prisoner's medical issue. When the guards were in the hospital with the sick inmate, the inmates were left in the van, and 5 of them watched in shock as Coleman and Burns jumped back into the van and drove it off. There was
Pretty
just one
smart.
problem. Oklahoma inmate Joshua Silverman wanted no part of this, and when Coleman and Burns stopped the van briefly,
snitch?
he called 911.
Nah,
and let the
what
authorities know
snitch,
exactly
bro?
what
Oh,
happened.
what?
He knew the penalty for an escape attempt and wanted to play it safe, and soon the authorities were all over the area tracking down the inmates one by one.
To be fair, I bet he got time off his sentence. I bet
He's
he
been released at that point.
He's a snitch.
Or he could have just got caught and just claimed he got kidnapped. It was involved in it. You just sat
To be
there.
fair though, he probably didn't want to risk it because the US justice system. Let's be real.
And it
shots.
seems like they got out of the van at the next stop, and then they all went their separate ways. So what does he do at that point?
Just sits on the bus and waits.
Ties himself to the chair on the
Wait,
bus.
To be fair, if a stolen bus is there and the rest of the inmates are gone, and he's still on the bus in his seatbelt, being transferred
In
still.
his seatbelt, imagine.
There's no way they can say that he tried to escape prison because he didn't.
True. It's just waiting for
He's
him.
like, look, where the others, they escaped.
He's
I'm
trying to
still
get brownie
here
points there,
by
wasn't he?
myself.
Guards were foiled because not
Nah,
everyone
snitches
they
get
drafted
stitches
into
always.
their escape was on board. Some inmates go further than most to escape, and this next one even got his family involved. Clavino de Silva was a notorious drug trafficker in Brazil, and he was serving a sentence of more than 70 years when he hatched his escape plan. One of the few people who still visited him on the inside was his 19-year-old daughter, and when she arrived, he convinced her to help him.
thick.
When the daughter left the prison after her visit, everyone noticed she looked a little different, and it didn't take long for the ruse to
Oh,
unravel.
him.
It was
too
Clavino de
thick.
Silva dressed up as his own daughter, and he was
Oh my
less
God.
than convincing. A tight pink t-shirt and a rubber mask that made him look like a cartoon character weren't fooling anyone. Making it worse, he had left his daughter behind to serve his sentence.
What?
He wound up back in prison,
How's that
and
work?
his daughter found herself facing criminal charges for abetting an escape. One of Brazil's great criminal masterminds found his skills deserting him when it came to getting out of prison. Sometimes all it takes is one error to make a great prison escape fall apart, as our last inmate found out. There was no escaping from the most notorious prison in American
Alcatraz.
history, Alcatraz Island.
Yeah.
It had one unique security feature, the raging waters off the coast, which made swimming to shore all but impossible. But that didn't stop inmates from trying, and all 14 escape attempts were foiled, except for 5 men who were never found. Only one man ever got to shore from Alcatraz Island. His name was John Paul Scott, and he would have been a legend if it wasn't for one major misstep. A bank robber doing 30 years, he was sent to Alcatraz in 1949 and served 13 years before making his move. He snuck out using a rope while on culinary duty and left his injured partner in crime behind. He swam all the way to Little Alcatraz, a nearby rock formation, making him the only person to survive the waters without being captured. There was only one problem. He was completely exhausted and collapsed on the rock where he was picked up
No.
soon after. Was it possible to escape from Alcatraz? Not for long. But for some crazy
did so
escape
well.
that
I
were
guess.
actually successful,
Wasn't dumb.
check out
He did
Insane.
so well. Like he made
At that
it.
point, like, you just let him off.
Yeah, take a couple years off, innit? Take a couple years of his sentence and say like you did a
I
good
don't think it
job.
works like that.
Maybe that's how it works, isn't it? Add a year.
Yeah.
Or two.
Oh man,
or three.
he did a good job. Like, let him have it. Just put him in the
Treat
swimming
him like
pool.
a bounty hunter. Like he's found a flaw in the system, therefore
Yeah.
he should get
Exactly.
some time off.
You know what? The American justice system should start implementing that.
And this is why the Sidemen don't run a prison. If you guys enjoyed, leave a like, all that good stuff. Let us know what you want to see us react to down below. See you all soon. Peace out.